Hey everybody, it's Raven and welcome to my channel. I wanted to look at the SAVE Act. I was just listening to another reader who felt that her spirit guides were saying that it will pass. I don't know in what version. And this is a very reputable, highly respected person from my perspective. And I'm like, oh man, because I didn't feel like it was going to. But I don't know if that was because that was what I personally wanted, is for it not to pass. So I started pulling cards and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to turn this into a video. I already have some that already fell out and we're going to look at those. I'm just going to keep going and see if anything else falls out. It's not looking good. Save act. Is the save act going to pass? And we'll look at this a couple different ways. Okay. So the first thing I got was mail. Shocking, right? We're going to teach you a thing or two, teacher. Everything's it's broken, right? But it's all about them. It is definitely soul stealing. And they are dredging up. I know this is ghost hunting, but they are dredging up as much of the past as they can of how things used to be, that they want it to be that way again. I got contract in place. These are agreements that have been made. Now, this could be with the Project 2025, Heritage Foundation. It could be agreements with the ones way behind the scenes we're not seeing, who are really pulling all the strings. But the last card that fell out was Angels. So we do have protection and support. So I want to see where these go. And see where my cards are. I've got the True Crime, which I think we will want. And there we go. There's my tarot cards. I think I had them in the wrong bags. I do the Ipsy monthly thing and I get all these makeup bags and all my tarot cards fit perfect in them. So they're lighter than the boxes when I have to travel. I just have to get used to which ones are in which bags. So, okay, I want to look at this. Is the SAVE Act going to pass? And then we'll look at the pieces. The Hermit. They're in the background quietly, trying to quietly talk about it and figure out how they can adjust it to make it pass. Because the Emperor wants it, even though it's an empty threat about not signing any other bills until they pass it, which it's an empty threat. Because one, if I remember from civics class and what I have heard others say, is that you only have to, there's a certain amount of time that can pass. Either he doesn't sign it and you can override a veto, or if he doesn't, it's like a certain amount of days and then it goes back, and then Congress can pass their own laws. Yeah, is the SAVE Act going to pass? Okay, let's ask this. Is the SAVE Act going to pass in its current form of restricting voting, right? No mail-in ballots and whatever else is in there. I have not looked at all the details. Making it more difficult for women whose last names don't match their birth certificate. Six of Swords moving forward. Damn. This just makes me feel really ill. Whoa. Got a whole bunch here. That was too many. But I feel like there's a couple more cards that want to come before I start looking at some more detail. Will the SAVE Act pass in its full form? Knight of Swords. Man, it wants to move forward quickly. It feels like what they're trying to do is push it through so fast that, people aren't paying attention. And do it with a strength kind of a quiet strength. Don't announce when they're actually going to vote on it so that the least amount of opposition is missing, which I think they've done before. I don't consider myself a political reader. I don't. So I'm nowhere near as knowledgeable as some of the others. But there are certain aspects of things that are affecting us that I do want to read on. And this one is a big one, especially for women. Is there anything else about the SAVE Act? Boy, they really want to. I'm getting the want. Now let's ask, will it? And I feel like there's so much undetermined. Okay. They keep wanting it in its current form. Will the SAVE Act pass in a watered down version? Will they need to go to a watered down version for it to pass? The Hanged Man. Yeah, they're going to have to see it from a different perspective. It, and again, this is just my intuition. It feels more like, okay, we'll remove the women can't vote if their last name doesn't match the birth certificate, but we'll leave the removing mail-in ballots will, make it more difficult. So those parts will stay. Yeah, because it's almost like it's the cat's out of the bag. The Lovers feels like compromise. Okay, we might have to compromise and then push through the things that just make it more difficult, which they're already trying to make it more difficult to vote. But this would be federally mandated, right, for the states. So the blue states. Will the blue states be able to keep what they have, or is it mandated they remove things like Five of Swords? It'll be a battle. Oh, I hear lawsuits. Lawsuits, they'll fight it because it goes against the Constitution. It's unconstitutional to do the SAVE Act. That's what I'm hearing. It'll be a battle. Will this SAVE Act affect the midterms? Sun. The illumination that will be put on it will make it very clear to almost everyone. And when I say almost everyone, there's certainly those out there that want this. And the illumination this will bring isn't, eye-opening to them, right? Because they want the oppression. Will it affect the midterm? So normally I would take this as a yes. So let's look at that further. Or is this like from the battle? Does this mean we win the battle? Okay, will this affect the midterms? High Priestess. She is all about intuition. She's also about working things underground that come above ground later. And then there's the Seven of Pentacles, working hard and reaping what you sow. Man, I could read this so many different ways. It's like the ones that want the SAVE Act, right? They're going to work really hard and get what they sow, but that does not sit right with me. I think this is the states. This is one of the most unclear readings. This also, the High Priestess feels like the states where we're going to use everything. I say we, I mean them. They're going to use everything in their power to fight, which goes back to the Five of Swords. Let me ask the question more clearly again. Will the SAVE Act affect the midterms? Double. I'm going to go with yes on this one. What I want to do is read this in a way that says they're going to try to manipulate everything for the midterms. And I feel like I'm getting direct yeses that I just don't want to believe. Right now, as it stands, it's looking like it'll pass and it'll affect the midterms. God, that sucks. I feel like the cards have been very, very clear. Is there anything else about the SAVE Act that we need to know about? I do feel or hear very clearly that even if they get through a watered down version that affects the midterms, it's not long term. It's not permanent, but I don't know what not long term is. It's not permanent. I don't know if that means that by the 2 years later, I don't feel like it'll affect 2028. Like whatever happened, it'll be reversed, fixed by then. But then there's other, primaries and other voting that goes on. So I'm in Washington State and we're 100% by mail. So we don't even have the infrastructure anymore and the setup to, I don't know. And it goes to, yeah, I'm married. I have my husband's last name. So that automatically affects me. However, before I was even ever married, I was adopted twice. So which birth certificate are we talking about? My actual birth certificate or the last one that was legal? That's a whole other story that probably be very fascinating to most people, but it involves a cold case. It involves it's a thing. Dateline meets Unsolved Mysteries is my family history. But I digress. Okay. Is there anything else about the SAVE Act you can tell us? Please tell me please tell me what we want to hear. Okay, I don't operate that way. I'm not getting anything. I wonder. I'm gonna see if I can't ask this a little differently. Not because I'm trying to get a different answer, just clarity. Okay. Will women whose names do not match the birth certificate be able to vote this November? Queen of Cups. That feels like a yes. Will women whose names does not match the birth certificate be able to vote this November? I'm hearing yes. And that might be because of the watered down version. Um, Again, I got the High Priestess, which in this particular case, I'm taking as the female energy being strong and powerful and coming forward. And I like that. The Five of Cups, things are doing, you need to do things smart. We need to think things through. We need to, sorry, Four of Cups. My apologies. Okay. Will states with mail-in ballots still have mail-in ballots this November? Will states with mail-in ballots still have mail-in ballots this November? Six of Pentacles. I'm going with yes on that. Strength, yes, the states will prevail. The states will prevail. That's what it feels like. Okay, okay. So we saw the SAVE Act passing in a watered down form. Well, let's ask this. Before November, will SCOTUS deem it unconstitutional? Because there will be lawsuits. In fact, I feel like a lot of states, Washington probably included, because Greg Ferguson's, I like him. Will probably is already probably already has it ready to be filed. Will SCOTUS deem the SAVE Act unconstitutional? It says that rather than if it will pass prior to November. Will SCOTUS deem the SAVE Act unconstitutional? Okay. Will SCOTUS deem the SAVE Act unconstitutional? Come on. I do like my flyers, much prefer them. Will SCOTUS, all right, I'm gonna do the little Celtic cross then. Permit. I believe they are ready for this because they know it will be challenged. Crossed with manipulation. And I mean, obviously, we know who on this Supreme Court is causing this problem. Because they want to serve the emperor, the ones causing, the problem on the Supreme Court. Six of Cups is ahead. Looking back, what's our history? No, you go to the Constitution. Three of Cups is a celebration. It could even be overindulgence. I think the SAVE Act or whatever version gets passed, there'll be a celebration of it, but then there's judgment. Then there's judgment coming from the Supreme Court. The energy is Eight of Pentacles. Everyone thinks they're working really hard, and the energy is when it passes. This goes with that Three of Cups, that celebration. The environment is King of Wands, right? The kings, the men who think they're all that, and moving everything forward quickly. The hope and fear is Ten of Swords. It's going to die. Outcome, Queen of Swords. Queen of Swords. She comes in and basically says unconstitutional. Okay, so that explains why the beginning of this, we got, it will pass. There will be something, some version of it that passes. However, I am getting that there'll be a lot of lawsuits. And they're going to try to limp it forward. Nine of Wands. They're planning. They're going to make it sound really good. Knight of Cups, this amazing, offer, kind of appeal to the emotional base of how much better this is for everybody, because the King of Pentacles, right, is still pulling their cord. And the moon, what they don't understand is here comes, and then we've got delusion with Seven of Cups. And there's going to be, I still go back to this Queen of Swords and King of Swords. They're going to call it unconstitutional. Okay. That makes me feel better. And of course, I have to sit and ask myself, okay, am I reading this the way I want to read it? Because that is always a risk, right? When you're personally affected by something and you read on it. But I feel like I could separate enough from the start of this to the end that they will pass some kind of version of it. They will, but I do believe it'll be deemed unconstitutional. So that is correct. The reader I was listening to, her guide said, it was Susan Lynn. I just want to give credit where credit's due, because when she says something, it typically resonates with me, and she's amazing. And I'm like, okay, but let's look into that deeper. So I feel a little better. I hope you do too. I will leave it here and talk to you later.